Okay, so nice to introduce you there. I'm Graham Cox. I'm the production manager of Marshall Applications here. I've been here now 35 years. I originally started off in the wood mill department as a machine operator, and over the course of the time now I run the actual production of all the production areas, 5 team leaders, and hopefully you'll get an insight to what else happens on the shop floor today.
Brilliant.
You will. Please enjoy the tour. I haven't got all the technical knowledge, so if there's any technical information you require, please let me know. I'll highlight to the guys in the studio where we'll be going towards the end of that tour, and they can pass that information over to you. With his printed panel, this is actually Zach's guitar. It's based on the JCM 800. There's about 600 of these went into production. And in the framework here, we've actually got Zach's leather jacket. Jim and Zach were very close friends, and actually Zach presented Jim with his jacket at a meal while they were out in Bletchley at the restaurant. So, the most famous amp, which is behind you in that glass cabinet, obviously the amp number 1 this sits proudly in our cabinet up in our museum. Obviously it was made, it was listening to artists coming into Jim's shop. Obviously they wanted something loud, more reverb and everything else in that. So obviously Jim, as you see, parts are green. He used some old army service parts to create that amp. And from that, obviously, it took off in a big way and started the name for Marshall growing.
Is it possible to take pictures?
Yes, please. Any pictures and everything, please take away. Listen to what the artists have modified him, and now we're actually doing that for them, so you can actually buy the modified amp themselves.
How long are those in production?
They're in production now.
Until when?
So they're not, the launch date hasn't actually been finalised yet. It will be very soon. It will be this year. You may actually see some being built as we go around today. But as you can see, in NAMM, we actually won best in show product for that product. So what we have here is the Natal, which is now part of Marshall. Natal is a British company, obviously, but we purchased that. It really ties in when Jim was he was a drum instructor. So it tied in with us. So now we produce Natal Drums and outfit as well to supply to the artists around the world. We ain't left anybody behind, have we? So we're in the engineering department now. So here we have the Dave Mustaine actually signature stack series. Obviously, this was done where the difference in this one, if you can see, we have a metal grill that actually goes over the front of the actual speaker cabinet, where most of our units has a fretted cloth over the top of that, but Dave wanted a metal grill put on his. Dave actually come in, as you can see, he actually come into the factory to build his own stack, and that. I had the pleasure actually working alongside him in the wood mill, actually showing him how to sand the cabinet and doing the finishes and all that. He signed it like Jim used to do, signing inside the cabinets and everything else. But he had the different leather material, like the snake skin with the carbon fibre, we call it, actually on there. But these are actually Dave's guitars and all that sent over to us as well. Okay, so I'm going to hand you over to Phil. This is Phil Evans. So Phil is in charge of running engineering. So can I ask you to hold that, because the gentleman's it's a speaker, so he can do it.
Right. Good morning. Welcome to Marshall and welcome to engineering. So this is the engineering department. So in here we take sheet steel, metal, and we make all the chassis, grills, brackets, pedals, anything that's made out of metal that can be made in-house we do. We mainly use 3 different types of steel. So we either use Zintek, which is coated steel, we use mild steel, which is uncoated, or we use aluminium. So what we do is that big machine there is a punch machine, and it's got a carousel, which is basically like a big tool, rotating tool carousel. You can hold up to 45 tools, different tools, squares, circles, rectangles, anything that's required to punch out the job. So today we are doing SN chassis, which are these. So what it will do is it will run through a pre-run program. It will punch out all the holes, stamp the earth tree, and then it takes about just over 6 minutes to punch 6 chassis. Then when they come off, they're all tagged still to the waste material. They will then, Charlie will then shake them out. Once he's shaken them out, we'll file off the tags and deburr all the edges so there's no sharp edges on them. Once they've all been deburred and filed, they then get stacked up into a pile and go to the brake press, which is just there. Then Cameron is folding them into shape. So this job has got 7 bends. So we start off with doing the cable tie mounts, then we do the 2 ends, and then we do the top and the sides. When all the chassis are bent up, we then take them round to some other machines which insert all these PEMs, which is basically just spacers. So different spacers required for different jobs. So we'll press fit in all the spacers, the nuts, cable tie mounts, earth screw, there's some more nuts for the backs there as well. Once they're all finished like this, they then get stacked into cages you can see behind you, and then they're ready then to move on to electronics where they'll carry on their process. When we made all the chassis, we have to make the required grills to go with them, depending on what models they are, if they're combos or amps. So that job that we're doing now takes just over 6 minutes, do 6. To punch these grills, we'd punch 10 of these, it take 26 minutes. So there's a big difference even though this just holds. When these are finished being punched, they get bent. So there's only one rear grill that doesn't get bent, which is this one. All the other ones have got bends in, so we'll bend them all. They then get put in a box, and then they are moved to go to a third party company where they're plated, powder coated, and come back. When they come back, they go straight to finishing where they're ready for assembly. We're also making all the pedals here, some of the pedals, same sort of thing. You start off with just punching loads of flat pieces out. They then get folded and then they get powder coated. Then once they've been powder coated, they go somewhere else and then they get screen printed. So this is a governor. So we have to do the base, do the tops, there. And then you have to do battery covers as well, which go in the bottom. Right, so, okay. We also make the vintage chassis here, and they're still made like they used to be. So we make them out of mild steel, and then all the corners are all hand welded in house. And then those go to a local company where they get plated, and then they come back, and then they're ready to go to electronics where they're hand wired. Starts off like this, and then it will be like that where it's all the holes punched in it. So it just takes just over 6 minutes where it's just finished. Then that's now finished, that can now be taken off. The next sheet will go on, and then the process just carries on.
How do you program it to punch in different amp chassis?
The programs are all done by R&D,
right, okay.
And then they get transferred down to the PC side of things like that. It's basically just like a normal PC, uses Windows. You can edit it and change it down here as well, but most of the work is done upstairs in our R&D office.
Do you know what this machine over here is for?
This one? Yeah. This is a brake press. So this is, so what we do is, you see here they're all stacked up flat, and then if you wait a minute, Cameron will fold one and you'll see it being folded. So it just goes up and down. There's finger stops behind it, which you set depending on whereabouts the program you want it to bend. You can change the angles from 90 degrees to virtually nothing. 88's the most you can bend it.
Right.
Because after that, then you would require different types of dies, punches, and things like that. So,
Okay.
but yeah, most of it is just straight up and down. Like so. There you go. Okay.
So this is Jeff Beck's stack. This is something that never actually went into production. This is something we actually just produced for Jeff to go on his tour with. So he just made him the one-off amp. It was based on the 1962 Blues Breaker for himself and everything else, but it never went into like a signature series for him. But he took it on tour, used it for his tour, and then he designated that back to Marshall's to put in our museum. And actually, this is his guitar as well, which he used on that tour. So, just in the room here, I'm afraid we can't go in here. This is our final inspection. So what you'll see when we come through finishing, as the guys have produced all the speaker cabinets or the amplifiers, they will come into this room. Everything then gets checked for quality inspection. Everything is working correctly. Obviously, anything that doesn't work correctly, electronic faults and everything else, that amp will be returned back to that department. If there's an electronic fault, that amp will be taken out, sent back to the electronics department where the test guys will pinpoint the actual fault, correct that, amp will go back out into finishing, the guys will put it back into the unit, rebuild it up, come back it tested. Nothing will get past that unless it passes all our functional tests. Speaker cabinets are the same, inspected for quality, make sure all rivets and screws are all in the right places and that, and to make sure that speakers are working correctly. What we can find is that you get a buzz sound from the speakers, so it means that speaker's not working correctly. Same thing again, that will go back into the department, change that speaker over, and then back into retest, then up into our warehouse and packing department, ready to be packed up and then distributed from the warehouse.
Who supplies the speakers?
We do mainly deal with Celestion. Yeah, Celestion's still our biggest supplier of our speakers. Yeah, Celestion always been. We've never changed, and we always keep that. Over the course of the year, there has been different types of Celestion speakers we use in different units, but we have always stuck to Celestion. So here we have the 1974X reissue. So nice thing about this one, we've got the Perspex panel on it. This is a hand wire product. You see every single one of the components on the actual PCB board is hand soldered in. All the cabling is hand soldered into their positions, chased, tidied up and make it look smart and everything else. So obviously that's the bit you wouldn't see unless you take the front back panel off at the end of the day. One of these amplifiers obviously to produce in electronics, normally about like 6 hours for one person to hand wire it on its own. That was just a special one we do use for our museum and everything. It's been on tour and everything just to display the actual workmanship that goes into these units at the end of the day. So I'm going to hand you over to, this is Damon Wilson. He's not only in charge of the electronics department, but Damon oversees the wood mill department. And he's going to give you an explanation of what happens on within there. So Damon, I'm going to pass this over to you. This is a microphone, please.
Oh, thank you very much. Cheers. Right, thank you for coming. So yeah, if you want to follow me up here a little bit more. So we've got our assembly lines here. We're going to kind of go a little bit backwards. The boards are populated in-house, so we'll go to that afterwards. But basically we've got two different processes going on here. We've got our assembly process, and then we've got the process, like the hand-wired process, which started in 1962, and we still do that today. So we've got our assembly lines here. They'll take the chassis, which you've seen in engineering. So the first stage will take the chassis, they'll put the panels on, switches, transformers, anything like that. The second stage will put the board into the chassis. Third stage will wire the unit up, and then the last stage will do a functional test. And obviously if it passes, then it goes through to the next department. If there's any issues, we have our test engineers who will do the fault finding. So there's normally 2 lines running, 4 operators on each line, and each line will produce about 30 to 40 units a day depending on what units they're working on. So if you just want to come a little bit closer, try and stay as a group for me, please. So we've got our PCB here. This comes to us from stores. so we'll fully populate this in this department. As you can see, there's tracking on the underneath of the board, and then there's printing on the top of the board. The AI machines behind us will do about 30 to 40% of the components. They'll insert the components, bend the legs, then cut the legs, but it won't do any of the soldering. And then behind you, we've got the hand load stages. So they're going to put the larger components in that the machine can't do. So follow me down here. So the components will come to us on tape in ammo boxes. And over in the corner we'll preform the components. So they'll take the components, bend the legs and then crimp so it'll stay into the board. You follow me down here. So at the end of this stage the board has been populated but it hasn't been soldered, so we have our flow solder machine here. The first stage will flux the underneath of the board to remove any contamination, and then we've got the oven here. We'll do it's about 400 degrees Celsius to get the board nice and warm. And if you come a little bit closer, you've got the hot solder there, and that's running about 264 degrees Celsius. So as the board comes up, there's a pump sensor inside the machine that tells the pump to push the solder up, creating a wave, and the board's just going to skim over the top, and that's going to solder the underneath of the board. So any areas we don't want to solder, i.e. the valve bases, we'll mask them off before they go through. So I'll just show you this board. So that's the underneath of the board's been soldered, and the area is masked off for the valve basing, which will be done by hand on the next stage. So say in 1962 we didn't have the flow solder machine, we didn't have the AI machines. Our boards will come to us from stores like this, and we still use these today. So first thing we do with this board is we'll fit the turrets on one at a time using a rivet gun. And then we'll hand solder red wire underneath to create the tracking. And then taking the components again from the ammo boxes, bending the components, cutting them, inserting them, soldering them to create the board. I'll show you what that looks like when it's finished if you follow me down this way. So you can just wait there for me for a second. So you can see we're not using anything that's staged. This is all going for our production. This is the board that we looked at a minute ago, but now finished. So you can see the red tracking underneath, all the wires hand soldered, and then the components on top. All the gold bands on the resistors face the same way. Two reasons: one, it looks nicer, and the second reason, it does make it slightly easier to read the values. Once this board is finished, taking about an hour and a half to 2 hours, go to the operators. They'll take the board and they'll take the chassis. Once they've done that, they'll do some groundwork on the chassis, and then they'll wire the board into the unit, and that'll take, for this unit, about 4 to 5 hours on average. So I've got two different examples here, and again these aren't staged, these are just units going through the process. So this is one of our assembly units. You can see the board has been through the AI machines, it's been loaded, then gone through the flow solder machine, then we use push connectors and harnesses, and on 4 different stages we've assembled the unit. And then we have a 1959, so you can see the brown tag board, and then it's all completely hand soldered. And that brings you to the end of the electronics department, so I'll hand you back over to Graham, and thank you all for coming.
Hello everyone, is everyone having a good tour so far? Oh, that's good, I'm here to ruin it for you, alright? I try not to, I've just ruined the last group, so I don't think I'm going to get any letters from them anytime soon. So I'd like to welcome you to finishing. You've already been through electronics and seen all the amplifiers. The amplifiers comes out to us, and also you'll be shortly going into covering and wood mill, and then you'll see all the boxes being made and covered. So in finishing, this is where all the magic comes together. So the first thing when you're looking at a Marshall unit will be the baffle and the logo. So you can see some examples on the floor where your feet are at the moment of some of the design saw units that we're currently doing. Now, not everyone knows this, but Marshall do provide a design saw where the customer can contact Marshall, and if there's a particular image that they want to upload and be printed on the baffle, we can do that for you. If there's a certain type of corners, rivets, it's all different specifications which I believe can be found on the website. So when basically you do that, the customer does that, the baffle comes, see the white fret down there, comes on a roll. That fret gets put onto a baffle and then onto a jig, and then that gets sent off to a local printer around the corner, and they sort of print the image which is required for the customer. We had a question earlier regarding the fret. What is the fret made of? It's actually made of paper. So you can see that all that material you can see there on the front there, it's just paper material. So when the guy over the other side has done his baffles, right on the other side you see a rack there with some baffles in. He's using a staple gun and some grips to put the fret on. He'll put it into that rack, and then you see the guys there on the benches. So if you look over there, you see all the rollers there with the black boxes on there. So these are all done by covers, they're all covered already. They go onto the rollers, then the guys there will pick them up, and then they'll start assembling the units. So depending on the unit, we pretty much do around about 50 different models at the moment on the production floor. We've got Alfie over there doing 1962, we've got 1974s being made as well, and CXs, 1968s over there. When the guys have put them all together, they put it on the conveyor belt, and that conveyor belt goes to the guy who's got the best job in the world. Have you seen him? He was smiling earlier. If you see him smiling, that's him, that's Wesley. So he's got the job where he's testing the units all day, and he's getting paid for it. Can you believe that? He's checking for the aesthetics of the unit, the sound quality. If anything he's unhappy about, he'll send it back. If it comes back to us, we'll repair it, whether it's out on the shop floor and also goes back into tests. Another question I had earlier, how do they know what it's supposed to sound like? Well, regarding the speakers, we've all got speaker reference charts, so it tells us what speakers go into what unit. The same information is in that room as well, and it tells them what impedance every single unit should be as well. Now, we haven't got a scope in there which gives us some lines to tell us where the sound should be. He's basically listening for the sound, so he's listening for speaker buzz, any problems, fret buzz we've had in the past as well. So literally he's listening to these sounds. It might be one speaker out, he can pick it up. Now, I shouldn't be telling you this, but many years ago, when a unit did come back to the guys out here and it was their fault, everyone would stop what they're doing and start hammering on the benches with their hammer, and there was loads of obscenities. I can't repeat it. If this camera wasn't here, I would tell you, but I'm not. This will be on YouTube next week. So basically that's what would happen. Now, as I say, anything wrong, we get them repaired. So if you'd like to follow me, guys, we're going up towards covering. Some other examples of design store baffles, and just so you know what it looks like, or how we fix it, you can see the staples running all the way along there. So I know some people thought that we glued the piping on. No, it's all stapled on, and the guys on there do that. Same with this as well. So this is a 1974X. So there's the nameplate, the white piping. So again, this is the same nameplate. That's stapled all the way along there with the white piping. And then that gets screwed on to the back of this baffle, and then it gets piped all the way around. Now, feel free to take any pictures. If you've got any pictures taken, I had someone earlier, had a picture holding that. But feel free if you want to take any pictures. We've got some units up the side here as well.
Welcome to covering. If you'd like to follow me, I'll explain the situation, or I'll explain the process. That's one of 40 that were made by Jaguar.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing it.
Yeah. Mind Becks, gentleman coming through with cabinet. Thank you. Right, if you'd like to come up this way slightly, please. Right, the process begins with units being placed on the jigs. They're run through an oven to heat the cabinets up. All smaller units like the combos, the heads, this side is where they spray black inside. The reason we spray them black inside because they look a lot better than just being white. It gives it a better look in total. Right, if you like to follow me, I'll explain the glue inside. Right, as you can see, some of these units have been sprayed black. The reason we have these units on the jigs running through an oven is the glue we use is a water-based heat-activated glue. So obviously the cabinets go round and kept warm. Behind you there is where we spray the levers. Once the levers are sprayed, they run through this oven here and they're placed on the racks over there so that the cabinet and the lever, when they come together, will stick. I can give you a quick demonstration. Feel that cold? Yeah? Right. But just do that. It's still tacky. Yeah. But if I do that, the heat has activated the glue, so it's more stickiness. Yep. Obviously, this is a wrapping bench. Each unit, it's like putting wallpaper. Wrap it, bone all the air bubbles out. All the cabinets are signed by whoever wrapped it for quality purposes, so if there's a problem, we know who wrapped it.
Jim used to sign cabinets.
Yes, yes. There are units going round with Jim Marshall's signature inside.
I thought that was the rumour.
No, it's true. Obviously, training for covering, it takes about 6 months training to cover a standard cab. To do the vintage, it takes about another 4 months. What we do is get all the coverers, once they've learned how to use the basic or cover the basic cab, we get them to practice the cuts they use on the vintage on the standard cabs, so that by the time they come to actually start covering with the vintage, they're up to speed, they know what is expected. Yeah, the material, it's a cotton-based synthetic. Obviously it's called Tolex. Sometimes we call it leather. It's just what we do, the way we do it. Yeah, as you can see, the cabs and that, they'll just keep going around until we need them. We let the belt run down to a point, and then a couple of people will come off, spray and wrap, like the same with the levers, and then they're just brought together. So basically that's all there is to know about covering. Sorry? Oh yes, everyone within the department knows each job. When someone new starts, we start them off on backs. But whilst they're learning to do backs, they're learning how to spray up the levers, cut the levers, spray up the cabs, wrap the cabs. Once they've done all that, then after a couple of months we then start to train them up on the actual covering side, because you've got to get used to using a pair of scissors and a knife. You know, and you don't want someone losing limbs exactly. Right, that's all there is about covering.
So I'd like to introduce you, this is Chris Saunders. So Chris is now training lead within the wood mill. So Chris is responsible for all the training that goes on within the wood mill on the machine side of that. We'd like to standardise our training so everything's done the same. This falls on Chris's shoulders to make sure it is followed through and everybody's doing it the same way. Yeah. So before you start, Chris, can you just clip that onto your shirt, please?
Okay then, you need a degree. Right, that's right. You're here again. you must have everything, surely. Fair enough then. That's fine. We must be doing something right. So, right, do you want to come this way a little bit? So I'm going to do a little chat here because it's the most noisiest part of the whole site. After that, Graham will take you round as he used to be a member of the team. Okay, so as you're now aware, mainly aware, most of the Marshalls is made here now. End of. Okay, a lot of people don't seem to think that, we actually do. So and that includes the unit. So the cabinet that you see outside, everything is made out of ply. So it comes in.
Is this specific type of ply?
It's poplar ply. Beach face, poplar ply inside.
And how does that affect the sound? Because obviously it's a big part.
Now we have tested a lot of ply over the next couple of years, and a lot of the sound quality, which I weren't aware of this until a couple of years ago, ply has a lot to do with Marshall sounds. I did not know that until recently. So we've went through about 10 different types, and we've actually found one that is made in China. From sheet form, it will come to this machine here, which is the Morbidelli. The Morbidelli will cut to the panels that we require. Basically the whole unit, top, bottom, sides, baffles, backs, the whole lot. It'll cut the holes precisely, the handle holes, your feet holes, the whole lot. As a part of the Marshall build quality, the strength is come from the joints. And the way we get our joints is by the hauncher, which will do finger joints. Okay? That you'll put on top, bottom and sides. From that process, it will go to the press. The press, we use a resin hardener. Once we glue the press, glue the bits, top, bottom, side, like so. You put it in the press, it will square up, it will cook within a couple of minutes. The quicker the cooking process, the stronger the bonds. No way you're going to break that. Don't matter what you do, you're not going to break it. Once it's gone from the press, it will go to the bench. The bench will put on all the softwood for your batten work. It is done by using PVA glue, pinned on by staples. Once you've done that bit, it will go to the profiling of the unit, which is the radius part. We have two different types, a 22mm radius. It's more for your standard units, 36s, angles, bass, SC range, JVM ranges. Then we have a 15mm profile, which is more of a shallower profile. This is more for your old type hand wire units, SV heads, ST ranges. Once all that's done, after 20 minutes, you come to the last process, sanding. A lot of people seem to think we machine sand. No, we don't. We hand sand every unit. So we use a 40 grit and an 80 grit paper. Go through every little blemish. If there's a blemish here, we have to fill it. We use a filler. Once it's dry, go over it again, job done. Once that's all finished, goes to the ball ready for these guys to take. How long from start to finish would a cab take? Yeah, depending on the size of the units, we get different times, but yeah. So, no little fun fact, when you're on the bench or on the sander, historically Jim used to sign his name, okay? We still do that to this day. So somewhere on a unit, if you have at home, you will have a signed name. You might have on a unit 5 different names. They've all had a part of that product, from electronics, covering, finishing and wood mill. Alright, so Graham will take you through the wood mill, ask him lots of questions, being a team member of the mill. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah.
Back when Jim was actually working on the shop floor, obviously he used to, like you say, sign his name in it. The reason that come about was like the guys who used to work with used to wind Jim up. So if a cabinet come back covered incorrectly, they go, Jim, this is one of yours, you did this. He goes, I've had enough of this, I'm putting my name in the cabinet, and that's how it used to come about. Jim used to sign his name in it. We carried on that tradition, putting our names in the cabinet. Number one, it helps us to identify, for training purposes, if that person's done something wrong, we can give them extra training or that. But it's just carried on the tradition that Jim done all those years ago. So we are going to go into the wood mill. There is ear defenders if anybody wants to put them in. It is noisy. Like I said earlier on, can we please stick to the yellow brick road? Don't step off that. I'll give a few pointers around the mill, but it is a loud working environment. Machine's a self-loader. They will select the program in the machine. It will feed that sheet into the machine, and then actually cut, shape all the parts actually on there. So we actually get a completed cabinet coming out of that sheet. We will also neutralise as much as that sheet as much as possible, so we're not putting it in the waste skip. But any offcuts we do get, not only do they go to recycling for compost and everything else, but you can see the offcuts are in the grey bin over there. That will also go over to charities for the men in sheds that help for charity, play schools that help do stuff, even our baffle cutouts, they'll go to play association to help build stuff and everything, so we donate that to them. So we like to walk along the yellow brick road. So once we've got the finished cabs, like Chris said, off the machine, the next stage what we need to do is put the finger joints on the units. So these two machines we class as our haunchers. They're responsible for putting the finger joints in there. They take about 6 pieces of work at a time, tail end into the machine. It will clamp the work, start the blades up. So it's a column of blades we've got going upwards. So what it will do, as they start spinning, then the work is fed across those blades to put the actual depth of the finger joint in, depending on the type of the thickness of the material. So if we're working with 15mm ply, then we'll put a 15mm joint in there. If we're working with 12mm ply, then we put a 12mm joint in there. Once they've done the tops, bottoms and sides, then it will be moved over to the holding area, ready to go to the press area, ready for gluing and pressing together. These two machines here, here's our presses. So it's a mixture of our resin and liquid hardener put together, mixed together, and then we apply that with a tooling to go into the actual finger joints themselves. Once they put the top, bottoms and sides together, they'll select the programs within the machine. So the blocks will go to the outer dimensions of the cabinet. They can put 2 cabinets in at a time, and then start the processes. Now what would happen, safety door comes up, the 4 blocks will push on each corner here to close the finger joints, make sure there's no gaps in there, and it's about a 2-minute cycle for that liquid resin then to go to a rock hard glue. It works like a giant microwave really at the end of the day, and then you get a solid cabinet coming out the other end. So you can see that the cabinets that have been pressed and all come off. So the next stage is to put all front and rear batten work on there. It's softwood what we use, just with PVA glue. Obviously all batten work going into the front of the unit will be flush. So it's batten work just put on the inside of that batten. stayed on, and then the staples are really only there to hold it in place while the glue sets. The rear of the unit, obviously, if it's going to have a back in it, we need to offset the rear batten works in here. So what they will use is a spacer to give us the right dimension for those batten work to go in. Same thing again, glue down the battens, place in there and stapled in. Once they're battened up, then it will go down to the rollers, ready down to the spindle machine to have the radius and profiling put on. Within the wood mill department, there's certain areas of like machining that they can only operate for a certain amount of time. Hand sanders, they can only operate for like 2 hours because of the vibration. Anything over that can lead to white finger at the end of the day. So this is why we put a rotation system in there, so the guys know what operation they're working on every 2 hours. So as the units come down the belts, then it's come to the 2 spindle machines here. Like I say, they're responsible for putting the profile in it on. Our standard profile is a 22mm radius profile on that. That's the steepest one you get. That also matches in with the profiling of the corners, front and rear that go on there. Now the other profiling is our 15mm radius. That radius you'll most probably see on our vintage units. They will have no corners on those units. That's where the covering is all hand mitered up, butted up and everything else. So they're the 2 different types of profile that go on the units, and these 2 machines are responsible for it. This area here is responsible for making sure we cut all the batten work ready for these guys to use on the benches. Our softwood, in the racking there you'll see the demoulding that goes on the front of the amps. And then at the back we've got the 45mm by 45mm. That is the sound post that goes into the rear of the 4x12 cabinets and 2x12 cabinets. So to go with the speaker cabinets and amplifiers, we need a baffle that go with that unit. So here, this is mainly the baffle area. Everything gets produced in this area. Over in the far corner is our 220 CNC machine. So same process again. They will take an 8x4 sheet of the material, put it onto the machine, select the program. In the back of the spindle head is our tool holder that holds 8 different types of tool. It will cut the complete baffle out, it will drill all the fixing holes. Then the guys will take that, clean those baffles up, put the T-nuts into the fixing holes that's going to hold the speakers in. And then any additional rear batten work that needs to go on the outside of the speakers. The logo machine, as I said, that's got set heads, so we have the different side Marshall logos from small to large. So they will set the jigs up in there, set the preform head in there, the baffle gets fed in there, foot controlled, the head will come down and drill all the preform holes ready for the low coating pins for the Marshall logo to go in. The last stage, couple of stages for the baffle, is that we will drill the outside of all the fixing holes ready for the baffle to be screwed into the cabinet. And here we have our old hand router machine. Now that is responsible for putting the radius on the outside of the baffle. We have to do that because of the tension when we pull the fret over. We don't want a sharp edge because that will cut into the actual fret itself. Last stage for the baffle then, we'll go into our spray booth, sprayed with a water-based black paint, placed on racking and then goes into an oven to be dried, ready to go out into the finishing department, ready for the types of fret that can go onto that. As regards to the cabinets, their last stage comes down to the sanding area. Every single hand unit is hand sanded. It is prepped, sanded, filled to make sure it is smooth before it can go into the covering department. Any defects within that will have to be corrected. Once they have finished it, then this is the holding area ready for the units to go into covering. So what you can see, covering, they've got their whiteboard of units they're going to cover that day. They will pull these units out of that location area, load up the carousel, and then it will go round to the first 2 spray booths. The first spray booth is the black paint. It also goes through an oven, which we'll see, which is equivalent to 6 of your own home ovens on full blast. What we're trying to do then is generate heat into the cabinets because our glue, like Paul said earlier, is a heat activated glue. It bonds better, easier to the units. Okay. So Kerry King had his own Citrus series. So as you can see on this one, actually, the actual markings within the fret itself, that was the corresponds with actually his tattoos on his arms. So, and obviously we played for Slayer, that's his guitar and all that. Just before we go over to the studio, obviously there were some 1962 blues breakers down the bottom there. So you would like to have a quick look at them, because we sort of like bypass them covering, because there is a few stories behind some of these. The main two 1962s which I got, obviously the father allowed, Paul Weller, obviously we've done the 1962 for him, so you can see we've got his mod emblem on the front of the printed baffle. Obviously he had one presented him by Terry for his 50th birthday. The one behind you, which is quite a special one, we worked on, it was a workmanship with, you can see, it's got the Jaguar logo on the corner there. So what we done here, we made, I think it was about 50 odd units. They are all gold plated inside, the amplifier and that. We made the wooden boxes here. We sent them over to Jaguar, which they stitched their leather onto the outside of the units. And then these units were either Jim presented as gifts, but one of the stories was actually a nice one. It was a 16-year-old young guy actually had saved up a load of money, and he come in and purchased one of these. Jim presented it on the front steps within the reception. Don't know how much these would be worth now, but I can see they'd be a small fortune, I think. So that young guy has got quite a good investment at the end of the day on that one.
How long ago was that?
Oh, you got me now on how years. Many years ago, I was still an operative in the wood mill at that time. But yeah, it's many years ago, but it was a good project to work alongside Jaguar with at the end of the day.
That must be 30 years.
Yeah, it's a good 30 years at least, yes.
It's probably when you were about 80, Brandon.
Okay, so we'll just go over to the recording studio now. So just before we go over, one of the most famous artists that obviously has used Marshalls over to and had his own signature series, obviously Slash. These are all the Slash signature series and models we've made over Slash. Slash is the only one that has his own Marshall logo. So obviously we've done the ADF 100. That was a limited run. With those ones, it actually come with its own flight case as well. But obviously Slash has quite a few different versions we put out, from combos, heads